Ever get blindsided by those getting older moments? Like, one day you're fine, the next you're squinting at your phone, and it's like it's written in ancient Greek.
I think we've all been there, yeah.
Well, get this. What if it's not all in our heads? We're diving into some fascinating research today that suggests aging might hit us in, get this, biological waves, particularly in our 40s and 60s.
What's fascinating here is that while we all know aging is a process, this research gives us a peek under the hood at the molecular level to see how and when things are shifting.
Okay, so let's unpack this. So they basically took a bunch of people over 100 and followed them for years, regularly checking their blood, even their gut microbes. Talk about a long-term commitment.
It's like a biological time lapse, and the sheer amount of data they gathered is mind-boggling. We're talking like over 135,000 different molecules they tracked. That's like taking a high-resolution snapshot of everything happening inside our cells as we age.
Okay, so they got years of data, a molecular highlight reel of aging.
Yeah.
What's the big takeaway? What's changing and when?
The really interesting thing is they found that these molecular changes weren't just happening gradually. They seem to cluster around two specific age ranges, the 40s and the 60s, like there are these biological turning points.
Hold on, the 40s? Wow. I don't think my 20-year-old self would have put major biological shift on the calendar next to turn 40.
Exactly, and that's what makes this research so compelling. It's challenging what we think we know about aging. It's not just about, wrinkles and gray hair. There's a whole internal landscape shifting beneath the surface.
So what's the deal with our 40s? What's going on in our bodies that we might not even realize?
One of the findings that really jumped out was that compared to, their younger counterparts, the 40-somethings in the study showed less activity in certain pathways, the ones responsible for breaking down things like alcohol and fats.
Okay, so that's why hangovers seem to have gotten so personal in the last few years. It's not just me being dramatic. There's actually something going on with how my body processes things.
It really points to the fact that our metabolism may not be as efficient as it once was.
Speaking of 40 surprises, is there anything happening with our energy levels? Or is it just the hangovers telling the story? Funny, when I think of aging milestones, the 60s definitely come to mind before the 40s.
Yeah.
I guess we've got some outdated programming there. But this study is really making me rethink things. What about the other big one, the 60s? What's happening on a molecular level then?
Well, one of the most significant findings in the 60s group was a marked decline in, get this, key immune system molecules.
Okay, so that one's not as surprising.
Yeah.
I mean, we know our immune systems tend to weaken as we get older. But to actually see it in the data like this?
Exactly. And it's not just a general decline. They found lower levels of very specific molecules like these things called inflammatory cytokines, which are, they're crucial for fighting off infection. You can think of them like the body's first responders.
So less of those, what did you call them? Cytokines?
Inflammatory cytokines, yeah.
Cytokines. Okay, so less of those means our bodies might not be as quick to fight off, like bugs and stuff as we get older.
Yeah.
Makes sense why we hear so much about, boosting your immune system as you age. It's not just about vitamins. It's about this whole other level of defense happening in our cells.
Precisely. And it really highlights the importance of understanding these changes on a deeper level. It's not just about wrinkles and gray hair. It's about how our bodies are functioning differently on this microscopic scale.
It's like we're getting a behind-the-scenes look at what's going on in our own bodies, which makes me wonder, what can we do with this information? If I'm in my 40s right now, or maybe approaching my 60s, what's the takeaway? What should I be doing differently?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And it's where this research goes from, interesting to actually empowering. Knowledge is power, and knowing this about those biological waves gives us a chance to, ride them a little smoother.
Okay, I like that. Ride the waves. So give me an example. What could someone listening do differently, NOW, knowing about these potential shifts in their 40s and 60s?
Well, for starters, it really underscores the importance of those regular checkups, particularly as you hit those turning points. Don't just brush them off. In your 40s, for example, it could be really valuable to talk to your doctor about, say, monitoring your lipid levels.
Hold on, back up a sec. Lipid levels, you mean like cholesterol?
Exactly. Lipid levels are basically a measure of the different fats in your blood, and they play a big role in heart health. Knowing this research about potential metabolic shifts in our 40s, it could be worth having that conversation with your doctor, especially if, heart health is a concern.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So don't skip the annual physical, and don't be afraid to ask questions. What else?
This research also really emphasizes the importance of a healthy lifestyle at every age, but especially as we navigate these biological phases, we're talking about, the usual suspects. Regular exercise, a balanced diet, managing stress.
It's interesting. You hear that advice all the time. Eat well, exercise, manage stress, but it's easy to kind of tune it out.
Hmm.
But when you understand that there are these like actual biological shifts happening, these periods where our bodies might need extra support.
It puts it all in perspective, doesn't it?
It totally does. It's like
Yeah.
it's not just about like fitting into your genes. It's about supporting these larger biological processes. Okay, so we've got the checkups. We've got the healthy lifestyle. Any other surprises we should be prepared for? Okay, so we've covered the 40s and the 60s, but what about everything in between?
Yeah.
Is it just a free-for-all in our 50s, or are there other waves we haven't even talked about yet?
That's the thing about research, right? It often generates more questions than answers. And it's entirely possible there are other significant shifts happening at different points in our lives. Yeah.
It's like this research just opened a door to a whole new way of thinking about aging.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right, it's just one study, right? It's not like we've unlocked all the secrets of aging just yet.
Absolutely. It's important to remember this was a relatively small group of participants, and they were all from, the same geographic area.
Okay.
So while the findings are incredibly interesting, we need more research to confirm if these biological waves are, universal.
Got it. So bigger studies, more diverse populations, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So besides figuring out if this applies to, like, everyone, what else is this study making scientists curious about?
Well, one of the big questions is WHY, these ages.
Oh.
Why are the 40s and 60s such turning points? Is it hormonal changes, lifestyle factors finally catching up with us,
Well,
or it's something else entirely? I mean, there's a whole symphony of possibilities to explore.
and here's where my brain goes into overdrive. What if we could pinpoint exactly what's changing and WHY at each of these phases? Could we actually, like, intervene? Could we develop personalized strategies to navigate these transitions even better?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's what makes this field of research so exciting. Imagine if we could identify those early warning signs, not just for things like, heart disease or diabetes, but for changes in our metabolism, our immune function, even our gut health.
Whoa. Okay, that's next level stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not about stopping aging, but maybe, like, understanding it, even working with it in a way.
Exactly. This research is a powerful reminder that we're not just, passive bystanders in the aging process. We have the power to make choices that support our health and well-being at every age.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive. It's definitely given me a lot to think about. So for everyone listening, here's something to chew on. If you could get a glimpse into your own molecular future, would you want to? And what would you do with that knowledge? It's a question worth pondering. Until next time, happy diving.